Okay, it is Friday, February 14th. We had two stories coming out of the New York football teams yesterday in the last couple of days. We dive into the NHL Four Nations face-off. Alex Bregman, Nick Pivetta have new teams. This is the Early Game Podcast. Listen to the show in the mornings on your commute, whenever and wherever, so you can be a part of today's sports conversations. Let's go. Okay, so yesterday, Thursday, the Jets officially announced they're not bringing Aaron Rodgers back next season. They got on Twitter, they got on X, and they thought it was a good idea to post that they're parting ways with Aaron Rodgers, with a quarterback who has not been on their team for longer than a year and 6 plays. A season and 6 plays. They penned an entire goodbye. They had a link to an article saying we have informed Aaron Rodgers that we will be moving in a different direction at quarterback. They came out with an entire statement. Here, I'm going to read the statement here. This is from Aaron Glenn and Darren Moogie. They wrote, last week we met with Aaron and shared that our intention was to move in a different direction at quarterback. It was important to have this discussion now to provide clarity and enable each of us the proper time to plan for our respective futures. We want to thank him for the leadership, passion, and dedication he brought to the organization and wish him success moving forward. And then they also had a statement from Woody Johnson. I personally want to thank Aaron for his time at the New York Jets. Thank him for his time at the New York Jets. Is that like how you talk about someone's tenure with a team? His arrival in 2023 was met with unbridled excitement and will forever be grateful that he chose to join us to continue his Hall of Fame career. One day, from day one, he embodied all that it meant to be a New York Jet, which is embraced our fans and immersed himself in our city. That is what I will remember most when I look back at his time here. He will always be welcome, and I wish him only the best in whatever he chooses to do next. I mean, and then they posted another post. Thank you for everything the past 2 years. Thank you, 8. Guys, social media, and to whoever's idea this was, whoever thought this was needed, was wrong. A miscalculation. This is so Jets to think that they need to give a whole apology. I don't even know what this is. A whole departure statement for Aaron Rodgers, who played one season, basically. This is what they think is necessary. And again, we've spoken about, what direction they're going from here. I'm at a loss. There is no good direction to go in. Now, there was a rumor yesterday about, not a rumor, Colin Cowherd got on his show and he spoke about how he thinks soon enough Joe Burrow is going to want out of Cincinnati. And I was thinking to myself, is Joe Burrow the one guy that could actually turn the New York Jets around? Put Joe Burrow on the New York Jets. Think about it. Close your eyes. I know there are a lot of Jets fans who listen to this. Close your eyes for a second. Think about it. Joe Burrow as the quarterback for the New York Jets. He's in the green, white, and now black. That's something that fascinates me. The Jets trying to make a play for Joe Burrow. Now, I think that give the Bengals a little bit of benefit here to figure things out a little bit. We're 2 to 3. How many seasons removed are we from them playing in the Super Bowl? let's pump the brakes there a little bit with that narrative. But that's a little something to hang on to there. If Colin Cowherd knows something we don't about Joe Burrow's feelings about being a Bengal and kind of his swagger, his demeanor, in my opinion, in my estimation, being a perfect fit for New York. That's something to think about. That's something to maybe wet the beak a little bit if you are a fan of the New York Jets. Okay, let's move on. And I said two teams in the Meadowlands were in the news. Yeah, this. By the way, I didn't mention. Apologies for no show yesterday. I was a little bit under the weather. I don't know if you could hear it in my voice. But something I wanted to talk about yesterday was, and I had a show planned, but one topic that will carry over from the defunct Thursday edition of Early Game is that it was announced. So I think the creator or one of the people who runs Hard Knocks on HBO, he went on Pat McAfee. This was from I'm not even sure which article I pulled this from. But this is just fact. NFL Films there we go. NFL Films Vice President Keith Khosrow joined ESPN's The Pat McAfee Show on Wednesday and didn't seem so confident a team would step up and volunteer to be on the program. Quote, "There's definitely a chance. We hope it's back. We're talking to a bunch of teams about it. But we'll see if that happens. I mean, we need a willing participant on that one. We're not going to force someone to do that show," Khosrow said. This was a disaster when the Giants participated in it last season. There was that infamous scene where Joe Shane and John Mara were discussing Saquon leaving. Spoiler alert, Saquon was an MVP finalist and won the Super Bowl, and they're kind of saying how, it's not a big deal if he leaves. Let's watch him leave. There's also a clip where Joe Shane's son told him he should draft Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels obviously went on to win Rookie of the Year. So the Giants, John Mara and Joe Shane, were not shown in a good light. You know what? If I'm the Giants, I double down. Sign back up. Go on and prove you're not crazy. Go on and prove you know what you're doing as owner, as general manager. They're going to choose who their next quarterback is. Show the process of figuring that out. You might as well. What do you have to lose now? Because the worst kept secret is that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane will be fired if there's even an ounce of funny business this offseason. I mean, can you imagine that? Running it back, part 2, off-season Hard Knocks with the Giants. Make it, just make it every offseason, it's the Giants. How great would that be? Okay. Let's move on. So, the next topic I want to discuss is the Four Nations NHL tournament. And I've been discussing this for the last couple of shows. Just a quick recap. The NHL this season decided that they were done with the All-Star game, that it wasn't working, there was no format they could figure out to get it right. And so what was the alternative that they decided? They said, people love international play. They love when their teams are the players representing their countries. And so they decided they're going to make their own mini Olympic-style tournament. America, USA, Canada, Finland, and Sweden. And it started 2 nights ago Wednesday night. And let me tell you, this tournament is flat out perfect. I wasn't sure it was going to be. They're replacing the All-Star game, something that has been unsuccessful, with this event. So going in, you're thinking to yourself, is this going to draw attention like an All-Star game does or has in the past, or would it draw closer to what the Olympics does? And I turned it on Wednesday night. And oh my goodness, it was excellent. Smartly, they had Canada playing in the opening game. It was in Canada. It was in Montreal. They played Sweden. And, I'm turning on. I'm like, are these fans going to be into it? This is the first time they're ever doing it. Are the fans going to... I mean, the fans were electric. The players were taking it seriously. And you see that if you have this flavor of representing your country, that's the way to do it. I got a little worried because Canada, they scored a minute into the game, and they got off to a quick 2-0 lead. And I thought it was going to be lopsided. I'm thinking to myself, obviously, it's fun that they have Sweden and Finland participating. But, ultimately, the United States, Canada are just going to dominate this tournament. And it's going to be kind of ridiculous, kind of stupid. But no. Canada was up 2 goals in the third. Sweden comes back, force overtime. It's a phenomenal game. Canada ends up winning 4-3 in overtime. And then last night, the United States destroyed Finland 6-1. And that was great too. You get, and you get to see Austin Matthews playing with Jack Hughes on the same line. I mean, it was awesome. It was really, really good. And so, Adam Silver went on Part of My Take earlier this week, and they were discussing my guess is that they're trying to get more people to tune into the All-Star game. A lot of what they were talking about was about the All-Star game coming up. And they're also doing this tournament-style game to 40. I don't know. My guess is that will be a failure. What they need to consider is a tournament similar in style to this. Now, could you do country versus country? Probably not if you're only going to include NBA players. Probably not as easy. It's probably a little too, the United States would just be way too good, I think, in a format where it's only NBA players. But the idea I proposed, I posted this on Twitter. Why don't you do a state against state tournament, right? So let's say you do a 16-team tournament with not 16. That's probably too many. That's probably too many. Let's call it a 8-team tournament. So you have New York, you have Florida, you have California, you have and on and on and on, and then you have an international team. So 7 states and an international team, and do it that way. A round robin tournament that way, over a week, the same way the NHL is doing it. That's the way to do it. That is the way for the NBA to fix their All-Star game. I mean, this NHL situation is just fantastic. And I brought this point up the other day, and now it's a little more clear. I said, when you have these All-Star game events, you are trying to bring revenue to the cities hosting. They're, to the stadiums, to the arenas that are hosting these games. You're trying to boost those cities. So, I don't think that it was so advertised that Montreal and Boston were hosting this year. But imagine the next time they do this, which I'm sure they will do it again. You boost up 2 host cities. Hey, this year New York and Winnipeg are going to be hosting. Next year it's going to be LA and Edmonton. Think about how awesome. And it's just the thing about it really is that the players are, you're trying to figure out ways to engage the players. How are we going to make it so that the players are taking it seriously? And clearly the East versus West system wasn't working anymore. The only sport it works anymore in is baseball. For whatever reason, the pitchers aren't throwing the ball in there at 60 miles per hour. They're not pitching at 60 miles per hour. And so here with hockey, they were able to figure out, and I think the NBA could follow suit. Okay, let's move on. We've got two big baseball signings to talk about and a lot surrounding them. So Wednesday night, it was announced that the Padres signed Nick Pivetta to a 4-year contract. And it's a very interesting deal. So Jeff Passan broke it down. It's 4 years, $55 million. And he broke down like this. Nick Pivetta's deal with the Padres has opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. The deal will pay him a $3 million signing bonus. And listen to this, a $1 million salary in 2025. $19 million in 2026. $14 million in 2027 and $18 million in 2028. We spoke about last week how the Padres were rumored to want to trade Dylan Cease and or Michael King. But now, who knows the direction they're going to go in? There was word they were not interested in trading them anymore. John Heyman was reporting that. Their rotation as is spectacular. Cease, King, Yu Darvish, Nick Pivetta, Matt Waldron. But think about it the other way. They signed Pivetta. They can now flip one of their pitchers for other assets. Prospects, for example. Especially if they are trying to limit payroll. What they could do is say, hey, we are looking for major league ready prospects in return for one of these pitchers who's in their contract year. And this is kind of me more wishful thinking because the Mets are set to be the front runner if they decide to trade him to be traded too. But what they can do is turn Dylan Cease into other assets by trading him. And the thing that I think about is here, if it's about limiting payroll, the thing that gives it away is that $1 million salary in 2025. They just had a whole ownership situation where they couldn't figure out who's going to be the managing owner, I guess, or the main. It was an in-family fight. And that was resolved last week. Now they have, I think that the son of the owner who passed away last year, 2 years ago, is going to be controlling the team. And so it makes a little sense now that they want a year to get their bearings together, and then they'll figure out the financials later on. And that's why they back-ended this whole deal. And I'm sure it's also because, they're saying to themselves, look, Nick, you're able to opt out in years 2, 3, and 4 before each of those seasons, or you have a nice salary if you decide not to, but give us this for $1 million this year. Give us production for $1 million in this year. Why not for him? It's a good gamble, and he has a qualifying offer attached to him. And you can't attach a qualifying offer to a player a second time. So he can go back into free agency next year, guaranteed not to have a qualifying pick attached to him, and get a real nice contract for himself. But you think, did they sign this player? Did they sign Nick Pivetta in order to turn around and trade one of their star pitchers? It seems like, reading the tea leaves, based on what reporters are saying, it seems a little more likely they would trade Cease than King. But if you are a Padres fan, pause for a second. This rotation is fantastic. And you really have a team. Let's not dance around that. Basically just lost Jerks and Profar, that's it. You got Machado, you've got Tatis. This is a team And, they put up a fight against the Dodgers in the NLDS last year. And now I think coming into next year, they are better than they were before. Okay. The last thing we'll talk about, and this was the biggest signing, because it was a busy night Wednesday night. Pivetta was not the only deal. We got the last big domino to fall in MLB free agency. After rumors linking him to the Cubs, Tigers, and the incumbent Astros, Alex Bregman agreed to a deal with the Boston Red Sox. And they gave him 3 years, $120 million. First, Buster Olney actually tweeted about deferrals. So he said the deferrals on the Alex Bregman deal are significant. The present-day value of his contract is expected to be assessed in the range of $90 million for 3 years. And Passan then tweeted, Alex Bregman had a variety of offers. The Red Sox has had the big number of $40 million a year before deferrals. The Tigers had years and dollars, 6 years and $171.5 million, also with deferrals. The Cubs at $120 had neither years, dollars, nor AAV. Tough to win when you trail all three. I mean, this is interesting from a bunch of angles. One, kudos to the Tigers for going all in as they did. They needed the upgrade. They had the AJ Hinch connection. But the thing is, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So A for effort, but close here did not matter. As for the Cubs, who I've said have had a marvelous offseason, very, very underrated. Good for them for at least trying. Although they needed to, as Jeff Passan tweeted out, it's hard to come from behind when you're lacking in years, dollars, and AAV. It's a hard battle to win. But geez, if they would have gotten that done, Kyle Tucker, Dansby Swanson, and Alex Bregman, talk about a clear front runner to win the NL Central, and I still think they are, even as presently configured. Obviously, we know what the fit could have been in Houston, but Bregman lands in Boston. And so their offseason is complete. The Red Sox have made their moves, and it's nice. Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler, Alex Bregman. I love that for them. It's interesting. We're seeing more than ever that divisions as a whole are great. Teams are kind of looking at it in the lens of, we play the most games against our own division, so what do we need to do to be competitive with the teams in our division? And so, for example, like the AL Central, a team in the AL Central is not as all in as teams in the NL West have been. The AL East went all in this offseason. All 5 teams signed at least one good player from the top tier of free agents. And the NL East is great too. Mets, Braves, Phillies, Nationals are up and coming. And the Nationals made a couple of nice moves. And the Padres added to what is now a really good NL West. The Dodgers, obviously. Giants added Willy Adames and Justin Verlander. The Diamondbacks added Josh Naylor, even though they lost Christian Walker. But they've been great. The Diamondbacks have been great. And they're certainly a threat in that division. They barely missed the playoffs last season. They made the World Series the year before. And so these are the 3 best divisions in baseball. Now the counter, you'll say to me, look at how many teams from the AL Central made the playoffs last year. What was the Guardians, the Tigers, and the Royals. And so yeah, the strategy works. Ultimately, the Tigers missing out on Bregman, it's not the end of the world. They're still going to be a great team. They made some nice additions. Gleyber Torres. They obviously signed back Jack Flaherty. And so it's a nice team. But the Red Sox, man, I think about it like this. If the Mets had signed those 3 guys, if they'd acquired those 3 guys, Crochet, Bregman, Buehler, I would have been thrilled. the Mets had missed out on Juan Soto and they'd gotten those 3 guys, I would have been thrilled. Okay. That's a show. Make sure you are following on Spotify, following on X, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. This is the Early Game Podcast. Have a wonderful day and a fantastic weekend. We will see you Tuesday. No show Monday for President's Day. Yeah, enjoy the long weekend.